the webinar is live. I see it. It is amazing. I said this at an event last night. I am forever fearful that Zoom has somehow changed its mechanism and I will no longer understand how to work it for these things. So it's nothing short of a miracle every time I press that button and see people joining us. But hello, everyone, and welcome.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite part, to watch all the participants pile in.
Oh, me too. I mean, me too, because it assuages my anxiety, again, that I've done something wrong. But as I was saying, Mark, welcome to another week of the Lunchroom. We are so happy to have all of you here with us today for another episode. I am Sarah Schofield-Manser. I'm ART's Assistant Director of Special Events and Partnerships. I use the she series of pronouns. And I'd like to take a minute and acknowledge the Indigenous land that Loeb Drama Center and Oberon occupy, and the Indigenous land that I'm calling in from today. Oberon and the Loeb Drama Center are on Indigenous and unceded territory of the Massachusetts people. And I myself am calling in from Indigenous territory of the Massachusetts, Pennacook, Pentucket, and Wabanaki people. And I'm going to drop a little resource in the chat for everyone. And I encourage you to sort of investigate the Indigenous land that you are calling in from today as well. Couple more quick little housekeeping tidbits before I turn it over to the amazing Mark Lunsford, who's joining us from a news background. Those of you who watch regularly might notice. As usual, this is about an hour-long program. Mark's going to lead our special guests in about 40 to 45 minutes of discussion before we turn it over to audience Q&A. So if at any point you have a question for Mark or our guests, please feel free to submit it using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And please note that it is different from the chat feature. So if you want the best chance for Mark to see your question, submit it in the Q&A feature. If you have any questions or technical difficulties using that, please feel free to send me a chat message and I can sort it out with you. But hi, Mark. How are you? My spiel is done now.
Hi. Great. How are you?
I'm noticing that you have a different background today.
I'm in an undisclosed location in Western Massachusetts.
Blink twice if you need help.
No, COVID, sometimes a change of scenery is necessary. So I'm in New Marlborough, Mass. This week, having a little working week, but sort of vacation work thing.
That sounds nice. That sounds really nice. Good. Well,
hi, everyone. I'm Mark Lunsford. I'm the artistic producer at ART. I take he, him, his pronouns. As I mentioned, I'm coming to you from Western Mass, which is the traditional ancestral unceded territory of the Mohican people. And I am a light-skinned white man with a dark beard, short, dark hair, wearing a gray polo. And I have a jacket on that someone actually just texted me to call it Dusty Mauve.
Oh,
that's, so sort of, I think on camera it's looking like a tan. It's actually kind of a pink, but whatever. And I'm sitting in a white living room with some little sailboats over my right shoulder and sort of a little shadow box over my left shoulder.
Thank you for reminding me to do a quick visual description. I am a light-skinned white woman with very dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and wearing a button-up plaid shirt. And with headphones. Very fancy today. Without further ado, I think it's my time to do what I do best and go off screen. So, Mark, I will speak to you and our guests. I'll see you later. Enjoy.
Always a joy, Sarah. Always a joy. Hi, everyone. So excited for today, and I want to get right into it. So if I could have my dear friends, I'm going to name you one by one. So as you come on, folks can attach names to faces. Taylor, can you join us?
Hi.
Hi. Ira, can you come on for us?
Hello.
Hello. Sharika, are you there?
Hello.
Hi. And Alfredo.
Hi.
Hi, friends. So glad to have you here. I'd love just to start off for you to give some quick introductions to our audience and let them know who you are. So I'm going to go sort of just around my screen and start actually with Sharika to my right.
Hi, I am Sharika Niles. I am a Black woman with very long, beautiful locks. And I go by pronouns she, her, her. and I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Alfredo.
Hi, my name is Alfredo. I am a Mexican man with short black hair, semi-goatee growing on, and my pronouns are he, him.
Welcome. Taylor.
Hi, I'm Taylor Brennan. I'm a light-skinned white woman. I have dark curly hair, pink sweater, and I take she, her, hers pronouns.
Thank you. And Ira.
Hi, I'm Ira Mont. I'm coming to you from Park Slope, Brooklyn, New York, which is the land of the Canarsie and the Lenape. I'm a white man with auburn and continually graying hair. I wear glasses. I'm sitting in my office, and I'm wearing a green polo shirt. I take he pronouns.
Great. I'm thrilled to have the four of you in the lunchroom today. And not only because we have all worked so closely together on so many projects, and you all represent different stages of my career at ART. Sharika was on the very first show that I worked on at ART. So like the first time we met was my first show as company manager when we worked on Porgy and Bess together. And then Ira was PSM of the sort of last big musical that we did before COVID. Done 3 or 4 shows, Alfredo, together, I think. And Taylor, we've probably done 15 shows together, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's just such a joy. And we have kind of a lot to get into today, and I want to really kind of create a space for all of you to talk together, because you all also have so many deep connected relationships to one another. I will never forget being on Alfredo's Instagram when he was like, I just made my Broadway debut in The Play That Goes Wrong. And I was like, wait a minute, Sharika's PSMing that. Sharika and Alfredo know each other. And was just over the moon excited. But yeah, I'm so happy to take this time to talk about stage management. And I was saying before we came on, I'm not sure folks always realize the like extremely pivotal role that the stage manager plays in the sort of ecosystem of a production. I think folks know about like, you make the places call and you call the cues, but there's actually just so much more that goes into maintaining sort of a positive and productive environment in a show. And a lot of that sits on stage manager's shoulders. So I'm excited to get into that conversation. But I kind of just wanted to start to that point. This big question about like what actually is a stage manager, and not just from the technical responsibilities that you have in making sure that each night the performance runs smoothly, but what kind of role do you occupy when you step into a show? What do you prepare yourself to be able to handle and to be able to manage when you step into a new production?
Who's going first?
I know, right?
All right. So since I spoke, I'll jump in. A stage manager can be many things, and actually is many things to many different people. We all have heard or used different catchphrases. We're the master facilitator, we're the chief operations officer, jack of all trades, master of none, in charge of everything. And, the stage manager can be, because every show is different. Every venue is different. The things you need to do and be responsible for are different when you're doing a huge musical on Broadway and when you're doing a really small play in a 99-seat theater anywhere in the country. It doesn't mean that being a stage manager is different, just what you need to do. And so I often say on a Broadway show, I am the senior artistic, technical, and administrative person on site. It doesn't mean I'm the big boss. It doesn't mean I'm the chairman of the board. And there are lots of people who get to say no or yes or do this over me as a stage manager. But I have a responsibility to know and be able to facilitate everything that's going on. And that piece of it, I think, is true everywhere you work. And I'll let my colleagues jump in.
Yeah, in a broad sense, I like to think of myself as a collaborator in helping to tell the story. Whatever that story we're telling at that moment, we're there to help as a collaborator with everybody else to help tell that story.
Yeah, and definitely as that liaison that we keep talking about and like, you know, the ultimate facilitator. I think what I love most about the job is that I think I play a great role in really being able to facilitate things happening in each department, right? So we have all the technical elements of a production, but then you also have people, right? You have the actors, you have your creative team. And being a team player is probably, you know, the biggest joy that I have as a stage manager in terms of making sure that there's a flow and that everyone is getting what they need on a daily basis. And that if there's an issue, and there will be a few issues that will come into play, that as management, what we do is we manage those issues. And we try to really see both sides of each issue and come to a common ground. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, you're also you're the person consistently setting the tone for the space that everyone is occupying in terms of what we're all walking into so that everyone can do their job, so that the show is consistent, so that rehearsal is productive. You kind of are the holder of that energy every day, as well as the pacing, you know, what we're able to accomplish, how we accomplish it. Are everyone's goals being met every day? Is the show the same every night from an energy perspective, from more of like a holistic environment that everyone has to be able to fully function inside of? I think the stage manager really holds that, and the team of stage management in terms of having consistent control and involvement across every element of the production that really can keep everything flowing a certain way.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate a lot of what all four of you are highlighting, because I would say, even in my experience, you know, coming out of graduate school, my MFA, coming into ART, I did not appreciate what kind of responsibility the stage manager really had to hold in a production. Until Sharika, we were in that production of Porgy and Bess, and I just like actually watched what it was to see a stage management team function on a major project like that. And suddenly was like, oh, I actually have very little idea how this works, and I have a lot of learning to do. And I think one of the things that has come to me in my time, both as a company manager at ART and as a line producer, is that sort of group of three people, right? The stage manager and the stage management team, along with the company manager and line producer, like have to have a very bonded relationship that where you can speak very truthfully and factually and efficiently to one another. Because hopefully there's nothing happening on the production that one of those three representatives doesn't know about. Sharika, I'm immediately thinking of White Card in particular, you know, where we had, it was such an ambitious production physically. And so we had a lot of changes that were happening in the tech week, a lot of scheduling that had to be sort of dealt with on the fly. And like you and I just had to get right with each other quick because there was so much that had to move, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I appreciate that relationship so much in terms of company management in general. I mean, we're the adults in the room, as they say, right? But it's important for us to have that bond and that relationship as well, I think. Makes a big difference. So I was always grateful for that, Mark.
Well, we need that support also, like on the back end of the production, which is why having a kind of a designated team that reaches kind of beyond the show and more into the company that you're working for, to have that trust and that open dialogue from the get-go, so that when a problem arises or we're faced with something that, you know, has a larger impact, we're able to reflect back to someone instead of forward facing into the production. So I've always been so grateful to have those people, certainly, especially at the ART.
As the individual here who has only had the pleasure and privilege of doing one show at ART, and the three of you have done many millions of them, and you too, of course, Mark. I was visiting someone else's house to some degree, and so it was very comforting to me, and it made it easy on such a big show with a lot of expectations and a lot going on to sort of come into a working environment. Because in commercial theater or non-institutional theater, every show becomes its own entity. And so even if you know a lot of the people you're working with, and even if you've worked with them before, it's a new thing. And at ART, I came into a working and well-oiled machine and infrastructure, and people who knew the lines of communication and knew the personalities and the intricacies. And so, first of all, I was welcomed, which always makes it pleasant. But there was no learning curve, because I just sort of stepped onto a moving walkway. And so, I took that trepidatious first step to make sure I didn't fall down. And then once I was on, it was fine. And so the support and the assistance that I got from everybody in every office on that second floor was beneficial to the ultimate production, to the telling of the story.
Yeah, I think, to that end, as is the case often with ART, we talk about like this like standard role of a stage manager. And Ira, you pointed to the fact that like different shows call for different things, right? But even with several of the shows at ART, I feel like there's this thing that's extra, that it takes this sort of very specific approach to manage. I think very specifically, Sharika, about White Card with that set on a stage at Emerson. I'm Taylor. There's a million things we can point to, right? The Magic and the Tempest, the tent, and We Live in Cairo, all the things that came with Great Comet. Ira, like you had to manage a sort of unexpected show-stopping number in the middle of Act 2 every night. That was sort of a new discovery for us, right? And the previews. But Alfredo, I'm coming to you last, mostly because the most recent experience, well, your most recent experience was being the PSM for 6 at ART, of course. But prior to that, you had been the PSM for Endlings, where we had 3 women playing the lead characters of a certain age in a pool on stage. So I feel like that was a specific stage management challenge, right? And like ensuring safety, ensuring comfort, ensuring efficiency. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that.
I mean, Endlings was also the show that was the last show I did, because I was also doing that here in New York. So it's very fresh in my mind. We had just started rehearsals a year ago here in the city. But doing it for the first time at ART, there was a lot of questions. There was a lot of, okay, there's a pool in the stage. And we have to, again, we talk about stage management. There's things that we have to do. We always do on every show. And one of those things on top of that was the pool. How are we using the pool? How is it being used? And then how do we keep it safe? And then how do we recreate the use of the pool once the ladies are in there? How do we keep everyone safe? There was just a lot of questions we have to solve. And luckily, we had a great team. We had a great director, Sammy, scenic designer, who had thought about a lot of this before I came on board. But then after that, I also relied on my team. Zach Jenkins was the ASM on that show, and he came with diving experience. He had dived, he had lifeguard experience. So that gave me comfort, knowing that someone on my team was always, looking out in terms of how to use the water in case of an emergency. But then after that, it really was about what was needed from our actors of a certain age, and making sure that we were there to support them in every way. We had rehearsals in a pool at Harvard. And so just having to transport a rehearsal room to the pool was always fun. How do we do spike marks? How do we do cue lights in water? So it was really exciting. It was fun. At one point we had to do understudy rehearsals. And at that point, I had to go into the pool myself to know what we were asking of our actors. So if I don't know how the water reacts and how I'm acting in the water, I don't know how to relate that information to an understudy or a cover. So it was about going into the water and trying to learn. And honestly, the bodysuits were buoyant, and it was really hard for me to stay underwater. So I can only praise the actors, Emily, Kuroda, Wai Jing Ho, and Jo Yang, who did this every night. And I don't know how they did it, but they are super women. And that was the biggest challenge, is how do we support them and making sure that they're able to do this show and lead a show every night. That was it was a great experience. And it's such a fun, quirky detail of the show that we didn't, a pool. Cool.
Well,
I do everything. Oh, sorry, Taylor.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I do everything that's expected of an actor that is sort of, you might consider a little off the mark. First, I go to the theater. I fly. I get in the harness. I ride up on the platforms. When I did Young Frankenstein, I was on the table by the big Tesla coil to be the first. I want to do all the things that. Now, I'm not going to do grand jetés and triple pirouettes.
Why not?
That I'm assuming that they know how to do. But the sort of the offline kinds of things, the new experiences. Taylor, we were the first ones to push the big house panels. We didn't want them experiencing it before we did, so that we could know how to talk about it.
Well, and ultimately that's another portion of what stage management is, right? Is that we have people that are being asked to do a lot on stage consistently, whether that's, swimming, whether that's like sliding down a 4-story hill in Robin Hood or flying, but also emotionally, when we talk about what someone is giving of themselves, both in the rehearsal process and also in performance. A huge part of our job, I think, is to create an environment where someone feels safe enough and kind of cradled enough to do what they need to do every night. And I think that changes dependent on the show. Like I'm thinking of, I did Notes from the Field with Anna Deavere Smith, and that's a one-woman show. And from a technical perspective, it wasn't too crazy, but what she was doing every day, the story she was telling every day, to be in a place emotionally and to be that open and that ready to give of herself, there is a stage manager behind that process. Hopefully. That's kind of supporting what that is. I think that's a huge part of stage management that you might not know about if you're thinking about calling the cues or making the schedule.
Well, supporting the actors is
totally. I was going to just add to what Taylor was saying, especially when you're doing a show with one other actor. If it's a one-person show, it becomes the dialogue is not just with the audience, but it becomes with the stage manager. There's a lot of timing. If there's ringtones, if there's phone ringings, if there's light cues, a lot of that you have to really sense it from the actor that's on stage and give them what they need. So, we might all have these grand, spectacular shows that with multiple cues and multiple special effects, but it also is in a similar way. When we do one-person shows, it's the same amount of importance to really get the timing and the energy and the vibe and the emotional cueing with an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, supporting the actors is, if you were forced to make a list of the things that a stage manager is responsible for or what's most important, the first thing really should be, we are there to support the actors. That is what our ultimate goal is. And you can boil it down, trying to craft a schedule, that is respectful of them, making sure that, their costume fittings are being done and keeping track of that they're happy and healthy in terms of feeling like they're in a safe space, that everything is safe technically. Alfredo, like you said, calling the cues so that they're not worried that the ringtone is going to come at the right time. Emotionally, it's supporting the actors. So if you don't like actors, you shouldn't be a stage manager.
Oh, that's the worst.
That, Ira, that is
yes.
There's so many people that I really just try to remind of that small fact, that, we are but most of us working in professional theater as stage managers, we're in the Actors Equity Union, right? So we are in the same union as the actors, and we are there to uphold those rules and protect them and make sure that we are that liaison sometimes between the actors and the creative team, or between the actors and the crew. An actor may come over and say, hey, he hands me that prop, late every night. And it's like, what's going on? And I don't feel comfortable talking to him directly. So we come to stage management and and then we take it from there. So I'm just glad you brought that up, Ira, because I do think that that gets lost quite a bit these days, that we are there ultimately working for the actors and then playing that liaison for every other department to make sure that we're running smoothly.
Sharika, you brought the crew into conversation, which I think is really important, because I think also, like, as a stage manager, right, you're sort of stepping in to be a leader with that group, and often you're coming into a house where you might not know the crew. Now,
absolutely.
For many of you at ART, you've all built such deep relationships with our amazing crew members, and they have such a joyous time working with each of you. But I wonder if you can talk a little bit about, from your own perspectives, when you come into that space, not only like we've said very clearly, you've got to support the actors and support their process and maintain their safety, but you're also, helping provide leadership for this crew and hear what they need because of the artistry of what they do. You kind of brought it up, Alfredo, right? Like those board ops, those crew members are also sensing and feeling and trying to feed on the energy of the show. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the stage manager's relationship with a crew and how that changes, as you go into different houses with each show.
Can I just start out with a big shout out to all those crews at ART? I've had great experiences working with them at all venues at ART. So first of all, shout out to them. But really, it's the testament to the institution, right? About hiring people that we can trust. And when I came in at ART, I came in as an assistant stage manager, so I was backstage. And I got to build relationships with them. And honestly, the best thing we can do as stage managers is trust the people that know the building. And they're there as resources as much as they are to run a show with us. They know the details of a building, how the stage works. And most of the time they're there building the set. So they know how it's all put together. And at the end of the day, leaning on them and their knowledge can only help us in executing all the things that a show requires of us, whether it's in the booth or backstage doing things.
I always say that, first of all, the ART crew was amazing that I got to work with in 2018 on Jagged. And again, that was another element. So coming down from the offices on the second floor, everybody in the Loeb Theater, from the TD all the way down to day workers. It was a great group of people. And you're fortunate when you come into an institutional theater to know that you can rely on a vocabulary and a shorthand and relationships that already exist. And woe to the individual who thinks that they're going to be able to just, undo that to make it be the way they want. That's just, that's foolhardy. But I think, and this is a little bit tangential, Mark, to the specific question, but it's one of the reasons why I think it's so important for stage managers to be really versed in the vocabularies that the technical side of theater uses. Anyone who would, think to put me at an automation console to program is, should be held liable for something because I would never dream of doing that, and I don't want to learn it. But I understand the vocabulary. I know what they're all talking about. I can barely sew. I'm ashamed to say I can barely sew a button on my own shirt, but I know what the 3 different sewing machines in the wardrobe room do. So I think that having the respect for the people you're working with, to be able to talk to them and with them about what your show needs, without making them take the time to educate you, because that's, even if they're really nice people, you're going to get an eye roll and they're going to like shorthand it and then blow you off and get back to the work they have to do. So to be able to be a part of that process and to gain the respect and trust so that you can be a leader, is really important, because you are the leader, but you know that your head carpenter or your TD or whatever they're called, depending on what theater you're working at, they're the ones who are in charge of that crew, and you have to respect that, and you have to have the working relationship with them. And then, of course, Alfredo, as you said, you started at ART as an ASM, and so you were backstage there with them. I was blessed to have Taylor, who has done 4 million shows at ART, both backstage and up in the booth. And so I didn't have to worry about what was going on stage, because I knew it was being spoken to and looked at, and I was hearing the things I needed to. And as a PSM, blissfully not hearing the things I didn't need to hear.
Yeah, that's like a major secret, right? So like the ASM, the assistant stage manager, at least at ART, there's a minimum of, when we're talking about stage management, there's at least 2 people there full time. If you're on a bigger product like Jagged or large scale musical, we're talking about at least 3 people every night in a role of stage management. You can't do this by yourself. But ASMing or assistant stage managing is the person that is on stage, backstage, directly with the crew and the actors during the show, while the PSM is the person that is calling the show. So when you are the ASM, you get to really bond pretty quickly with the crew and the actors in a different way. But that's ASM and PSM, I flip-flop like all the time, and I love both for different reasons. But it's so funny that doing both informs what is so important of one or the other. And I know when I'm ASMing, like, I want to take as much off of the PSM as possible. Like, I want to be talking and communicating with the crew, with the actors, almost around the PSM, so that when Ira's ready to run a sequence or call a cue or try something, I've kind of already done the legwork on the ground so that we're like ready to go. But that only works if you're able to communicate with everyone that you're working with on the deck. That was like one of my biggest, leaving ART, leaving leaving the crew. But like, these are people that like I've been to their baby showers, they've been to my wedding. Like, it was like 10 years worth of relationship. And that was like a big, because you develop such a trust and such rapport with everyone. So having to leave that comfort zone and then kind of fall back on my instincts of knowing how to communicate. And Ira, like you said, knowing the shorthand and both trusting yourself to know what the show needs, and also trusting the crew member that you're communicating with to know what's the best way to get there.
Absolutely. I think respect and teamwork is what like stands out the most for me.
Yeah.
The crew. My approach to the crew always is immediately ultimate respect for them, in the building and also in knowing their job, right? But I think what was always really helpful for me as an ASM and as a PSM is to create the atmosphere that we're all a team here. We're all in this together for the integrity of the production. And that is very important in the chapter of running a production, right? So I call them chapters. You have your rehearsal period, you have your tech period, and then you're running the show. And I just find it to be incredibly helpful to build those relationships in terms of respect and teamwork. It's not what you say, it's how you say it, to get what you need from all of the many personalities that come with being on the crew. And then also I would say to young stage managers that are coming up, for me personally, I have a very, interesting background in terms of starting off in acting and then also being a crew member, right? I ran props. I did carpentry. I did some load-ins. I worked as an assistant to a costume designer once on a film. I just feel that ultimately that those things really played a part in me then being in the role of communication, as Iris said, in terms of vocabulary, but also in terms of understanding the crew, in terms of getting, once again, what you need in that moment. If we're in the middle of tech and if it's a Diane Paul's production, which I've had the honor of all of my shows at ART to be, it's very high. It's very intense, and the tech process more than anything, time is money. And sometimes you may not have all the time that the crew requires for you to break down a sequence. So it's that preparation, it's that getting ahead of things and just really making them work together with you in the moment has always been helpful for me. So,
well, if you come from a place of yes, it takes the ego out of it. If we're all working towards a solution that has nothing to do with me and it has nothing to do with you, it has to do with solving the problem, like that's where the collaboration happens. And that's where you want to live. The best shows that I've been on are when you are part of a collaborative process and not crews directing 30 people to do it my way. Because your might not be the best way too, is the thing. But coming from, and I think ART and Diane Paul's productions in particular, you have to come from a place of yes. And it pushes you in a different way, especially with stage management. I think sometimes we also are described as the taskmaster or the rule follower and all those things, which is true. But coming from a place of we're going to do the impossible, where I want to see this thing that has never been done before. I want to put a pool on stage. I want to have an audience in a mosh pit with a rock concert. Those things are only accomplished if we're all coming from a place of yes and.
Yep. It's a world of yes and, not no but. Now, that doesn't mean that the answer isn't no sometimes, but there has to be the yes and element. Absolutely.
I mean, some of my favorite...
No, go, Alfredo. Go.
I was going to say, some of my favorite times are in that collaboration process in tech, when, something was designed a certain way, and something was directed a certain way, but when we get to the stage, it just doesn't work that way, or the way we do it doesn't look the way we thought it was going to look. And oftentimes the assistant stage manager is backstage with the crew, and we hear conversations happening out front where if we think and that's the other thing about being a part of the process from the beginning, we know what what a director's aspiring to do, what a design is supposed to look like. And having that knowledge from the very beginning, once we get to tech, we sometimes offer solutions that may not be visible to the front of the house because we see how it functions backstage. So there is a lot of ooh, that might not work, but how about this? Does this help the flow of what you're trying to do? And that's fun. That's the fun part of the job for me sometimes. That's one of the fun parts, is that, again, it's all collaboration with all parties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that something that you're all saying that I think is I really want to sort of underline here, because I think it's so important, especially with our industry and the place that we're in, and looking at what reemergence is and how we do this better when we come out of this pause, right? And it is respect and sort of actual relationships, deep relationships that are built on trust, which you're all pointing to, and especially Sharika, the point you were making, and many of us have this sort of shared understanding in that. One of the things that always drew me to theater versus other, I started in music, was sort of where the arts grabbed me. But what always pulled me to theater was everything converges on theater, right? Music shows up, dance shows up, visual art shows up, all of the practices come into this place. So that had always made it very exciting to me, but it does require or demand or challenge you to have knowledge, to have versatility, right? All the roles you were talking about having, Sharika, all the things you're pointing to, Ira, like being able to demonstrate to your colleague that like you are the great at what you do. I'm not that, but I understand it. And I can communicate with you. There's something that's like that like puts you so far ahead, I feel like, in so many relationships. I particularly see it. I haven't had the pleasure of being on the road with any of you, I don't think. Taylor, we've been out of town on a few projects, but and Sharika, we worked with a mixed crew on one show at least. But I feel like I have seen that when I've taken ART shows out on the road. The things like I have to sort of quickly negotiate that trusting relationship with those new folks who are sort of giving us a home.
Well, I kind of experienced that coming to ART for Jagged Little Pill. It was like, it was a one-stop tour for me, because that's what you experience when you go on the road or you leave your home base, is you're probably bringing a subset of insular, familiarity and trust, and you're inserting that into an unknown. There's a lot of stage managers who do a lot of work on the road. There's a sensibility sometimes that you are literally coming to their house. Like, you're here for 2 weeks, and then you're going to be gone, and I'm still here. So, hopefully you don't encounter that too often, where it's like, I don't care, and I'm not going to even listen to you or work with you. But when you're the one that's arriving, it's incumbent upon you, and as a stage management team, because we all have our parts to play. It's not just the PSM; it's the ASMs as well. As the stage management team, it is incumbent upon us to dive into the deep end of the pool quickly, because, as Sharika said, time is money, and putting up a show, the clock is ticking from the second you put your step in the room. So you've got to meet the people, gain their trust, let them understand why they can and should trust you, right? There should not be any, just assumption that they're going to trust you or be prepared to work with you. You have to gain and earn that trust. And I will say, I think that is one of the learned skills of stage management, is how to do that really quickly, really efficiently, and really respectfully and pleasantly. That's not necessarily something that you just are born with. You might have the aptitude for what will help you do that, but experience is going to teach you how to do that. And that was my experience at ART. I am blessed to be, one of a number of stage managers who significantly or predominantly make their living on Broadway, who have come to have the privilege to work at ART. So, I was prepared. I'm just another one of those Broadway guys walking into the Lobe and going to try and take over. And I didn't know anybody there. And you have to be prepared to let the crew and the administration that you're going to be working with know that you want to know from them how to do it best so that your show will get up.
Something for younger stage managers too, there's this idea that stage managers have to be perfect or have to know all the answers. And no, we don't have to be perfect, and we don't have to know all the answers. But what make us good stage managers is that we know how to find the answers, or we know how to ask the questions that will get us, the solutions that we need. And so there's a lot of pressure in being perfect. And for young stage managers, I would, encourage you not to think about it that way, for sure.
Well, and I hope we're moving in a direction where, not that that's going to disappear, but there is another way to do this job and to make theater and to be in a production process. I even in the, 12, 15 years that I've been doing this, it feels like that we are headed in that direction. But that it is so much better to take a second to pause, to ask the question, to be in dialogue with someone. But in order to, you need to have a space and a group of people that you trust enough to do that with, and that it is understood that this is a creative process, right? That we're not all coming in with the answers right away, that we need to learn. It's a development, right, from the beginning. And so being comfortable with not having all the answers from the beginning. And it's a learned skill too, of taking, to be vulnerable that way in process without feeling like you're losing your authority or losing the kind of the leadership position is a learned skill. And I think it's also something that is a reflection on what we're looking at in terms of creative processes in general also.
I don't want to stop this. This is a great conversation, but there are also a million great questions for Q&A. So I'm going to, for our friends watching, thank you so much for all these questions. I'm going to pick a couple out in particular that I can't answer and throw to these wonderful people to answer for us. There are some in there that I can answer for you. So as our friends are speaking to some of the topics you've raised, I'm also going to try and answer what I can answer via typing and see how much we can get to. And I also, just for our four wonderful panelists, in the last 5 minutes, I am going to come back and just ask you quickly, what your favorite memory or most hilarious memory is on a production at ART. All of you have been in a situation where something has gone terribly wrong, and maybe hopefully now it's funny and not as stressful as it was when we experienced it. But any other sort of favorite. So I'm going to have that in the back of your head. That's going to come back at you in a second. I want to start our really good friend, Asia Jackson. Hi, Asia. So glad you're here. She has asked, she says, I'm a big Taylor fan here, but she's asking how, as stage managers, you sort of balance your life, especially during Tech Week. How do you maintain healthy diet? How do you work out? What things do you do to take time for yourself to keep yourself motivated and keep yourself pushing forward in a Tech Week?
I work out at the Lobe. I had this really embarrassing moment where, the way the schedule is structured at ART, there's usually a 2-hour dinner break so that the crew can continue working and then also take their dinner. So as long as I'm not needed, I will work out in the theater. And one time I was working out on stage, and there's a camera feed, and I did not realize that this camera feed was being fed through the whole building. So everyone saw my workout that day. But yeah, so that's a thing that I do.
That's hilarious. And so have worked out up in one of the rehearsal rooms as well, and try to pack my lunch as much as possible. I mean, pack my lunch, because dinner I'm able to get out sometimes, but I think it's important to try to maintain your health as much as possible, just for your brain. Coffee is not my thing, but yes, I will be having coffee during tech because, you want to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when you walk in there. Because everyone is coming at you for something. You've got the creative team, you've got the crew coming at you, you've got producers sometimes, they have questions. So it's just about whatever it takes for you to be your healthiest, as healthy as you can be in those 7 to 8 days of your life.
And that's all the time too. That's my biggest advice for young stage managers, because it took me a while to figure this out coming out of college. And I wish I had taken the time initially, is you need to be your best self all the time, not just for your job, because this is just your job, but your life. So whatever you can do to carve out, things that you love doing that have nothing to do with your job, things that give you energy, that bring your best self to your show every day. That's the kind of stuff that should get fostered and developed early, so that when you get thrown into your first Broadway show, or when you get thrown into a crazy process, you have these habits and this foundation of who you are already established.
not only be your best self, but be yourself. And that's not just during Tech Week. I mean, the most important skill and asset you are going to bring to the job of stage management is who you are. When I meet new stage managers, young or old, when I'm interviewing or meeting with somebody to keep them in mind for the future or potentially to hire them for an upcoming job, it doesn't matter to me how fast you can generate paperwork. If I need to know I'm going to enjoy being in a room with you. I know you're going to make me laugh or laugh at my jokes. Be yourself and bring that joy to Tech Week, right? So part of what you can do to make it easier for yourself is not decide that even if you're going to be indoors on a beautiful day for 14 hours, don't leave your joy at the door and focus on the got to do it. You have to bring all of the best part of yourself. And one answer for me, not the only, but one answer for me is how to stay healthy and keep sane and et cetera during tech and production. As a production stage manager, don't be afraid to delegate. Obviously you can't put everything onto another person and you can't not do anything, but don't take it all on yourself. And I don't think that's even just as a PSM. I think everybody needs to be into the communal setting that putting up a show is, and let other people do their job. Let other people help you do your job. That'll help keep you healthy.
I'm just, doing a little question management over here. There's one thread that's working through several questions. I'm going to try to merge these into one. Lots of folks are asking, like, I'm a high school senior applying for college and thinking about going to stage management. I'm a rising stage manager, wondering the best way. Do you have any advice on networking? Just sort of like a variations on themes here. I wonder if you can just talk like just your quick nuggets that you often think about, things that you wish you had known early in the career, or advice you have for folks who are coming up in the field. Sharika, you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I wonder if you all can just kind of give quick little bits about that.
Do everything you can. When you are young and up and coming as a stage manager, regardless as to where you are, it is probably the most flexible time of your life in sort of every sense. So do take every opportunity that presents itself. Do everything. Don't be afraid to reach out. My wife is also a stage manager. We've been participating in some really great panels and symposiums lately. There's a wonderful organization now called Broadway and Beyond, created by some stage managers of color. And we just did a big event where about 15 working stage managers had the opportunity to sort of meet with about 70 or 80 BIPOC stage managers. And it was great. I now have a file folder of 70 resumes, and we encourage them, email me. Not working right now. I mean, I can't come meet you for coffee, but I can chat with you for 10 minutes or half an hour. So don't be afraid to reach out. Do everything and reach out.
Yeah. I didn't realize shadowing is I realize shadowing. I'm always happy to have someone shadow me, is I guess what I'm saying. So like, don't ever, and like the stage management community and the theater community is tiny. You don't realize it, but you probably, like, we all probably know like a friend of a friend. We're all connected. So I would say reaching out, don't ever be afraid to ask someone to shadow, ask someone to like look at your resume. I don't think anyone would say no. I think you're going to get more yeses than nos, and you won't know until you reach out. But definitely don't be afraid to send a cold call or an email.
I'm going to jump into two more questions, and then we'll do our memory moment, just to kind of keep us moving. Because again, y'all, so many amazing questions in Q&A. Thank you all so much. The first one actually is from our dear friend Imani from 1776. And
Imani.
She's asking, yes, can you recall when an actor said or did something that you really appreciated? or something you wish actors would do or say, other than knowing their lines and remembering their blocking?
What a great question.
I'll jump in with something quickly on Jagged Little Pill, which was, a really intense mounting process, both 2 years ago for ART and then again for Broadway, but at ART. And it was very wild and fast and trying new things and really pushing everything to the edge and the envelope to the edge, whatever that metaphor is, in both a really good way and a really, on the edge of your seat way. And I've spent my career sitting in rehearsal rooms, looking at dancers mostly, but sometimes actors, and thinking to myself, 8 times a week, baby, are you sure you want to show them that? We have I love our Jagged cast, but we were trying something at ART in tech, and one of our cast members literally just stepped forward and said, "We can't do this." And it was an intense moment, but it was respectful and, wasn't like screaming and ranting and didn't storm off the stage and the actors didn't revolt. But it was a moment of concern that we were all sharing, but we were seeing if we could do the impossible. And a member of the company, it was a shared experience. It wasn't on me to say we can't do this. It wasn't on the carpenter to say we can't do this. An actor stood up for themselves, which is, it's sort of weird to think that you're going to comment and commend someone for doing that. But in the world we live in the theater, it's important. I think we as stage managers must stand up for ourselves, must be protective of ourselves and what we're doing. And I just loved that moment when our colleagues just said, no, we can't do this.
Well, and sometimes we don't know, so like it's sometimes we don't know if you've been pushed past a point that you feel safe
right.
Because, you're going above and beyond all the time.
One of my favorite memories and something that an actor said to me was on a show that I was working on, and I took over as the PSM. I started as the ASM, took over as the PSM when the PSM left. And the actor, who was a person of color, a lead, came up to me on that first day, and he said that not only was he proud of the show that he was leading, but then after his long career, he was really proud that a brown person was calling and leading his show. And it blew me away because I thought about his career, and he'd been a lead in many, many times, but this was the first time that a brown person was leading his show. And that stuck with me. That just meant a lot in terms, not just of like representation for stage managers, but also across the table. And that really stuck.
I'm gonna go to this last question and then we'll do our memories. We're gonna run a little over. People who watch when I host know that I always do this because unlike a stage manager, I'm not great at managing time. And I'm gonna sort of kick this one to you first, Sharika, but please everyone jump in. In this moment where our industries have ground to a halt because of COVID, and there's been a lot of pivoting and a lot of reimagining. I'm struck by the fact that you were all in some ART affiliated project when COVID came knocking and we had to shut down in some form or fashion, right? But Sharika in particular, we were starting our workshops for 1776 and we were supposed to be going to rehearsal just a couple of weeks, and there was a major pivot. And I wonder if you can talk just a little bit about that experience as a stage manager, having to move to manage a rehearsal process via Zoom of a major musical with 22 actors.
Yeah.
And what you had to do to create that shift for yourself.
Right. Yeah, that was quite some time, Mark. And I just remember for myself when we canceled the last workshop in March before moving into the Zoom workshop a month later, just that feeling of the unknown, right? And just not knowing what's going to happen, when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. And then getting that email that we were going to do this Zoom workshop when we were scheduled to start our rehearsals for ART. And just the joy, first of all, that we were still looking forward to this production and looking forward to doing that work. But running the Zoom workshop, obviously, the first couple of days were challenging for people that aren't Zoom savvy. And, we did all of our little meetings in terms of tutorials, but things still happen. Everyone forgets once we're in the moment. But for me, the most important thing, once again, was, as Ira mentioned, to not do everything myself. And you literally cannot in a Zoom situation. But just specifically delegating, with my team on who was doing what each day. It had to be very specific and very consistent for the actors to feel like they're coming into a rehearsal room, ultimately. And then also just maintaining that sense of, and I thank Diane for this, using that time for healing. Like there was a lot of healing that we had to do, and individually, and then meeting each other for the first time and coming together as a company and creating that kind of camaraderie, that we were all in this together once again. So there was a balance between the daily standards of scheduling and structure for each day, what we're going to be doing, but also maintaining that through line of the healing process that we all so desperately needed, and devoting so much time to researching the history of 1776, and also we did our DEI sessions as well, in terms of dealing with the story and making sure that we were all respectful of each other as people of color. And once again, it was challenging, but at the end of it, we were like, so when's the next one? Just wanted more. And it was just fantastic to be a part of that in the moment, literally, and second by second, thinking on our feet how to keep this moving and keep it structured. So, I tip my hat to Diane as a leader. I tip my hat to ART and Sophie for the support, and then the cast. I mean, they were incredible, and I'm just looking forward to the next phase.
Soon. Okay, it's 1:02. I do want to have our memory moment. Thank you all so much for joining. I think we'll close out on this great thing. And thank you all for watching. Such a blessing. I can't reflect to you watching enough how fun it is for me to be in this conversation with these four people. And it's also just making me think of all of our circle of friends in the stage management world that we all love dearly and have worked with so much together. And I wish I could have all of them here. It's such a deep family. But let's just round robin it. Sort of wackiest, funnest, most touching ART memory on your show. I'm going to start with Alfredo.
I mean, it has to be the pool at Endlings. The first time things about the pool, we filled it up to what we thought was a great level. And, there was a little mistake of displacement of water. And at the day out, we were like, oh no. But I think we can laugh about it now that, as people were getting into the water had to go somewhere, and it just happened to go all over the stage and under the stage. And I just remember that struggle of like having to wipe everything up and like trying to gain a sense of control after that pool incident. And everything about that pool is a great memory. That was the one.
Ira.
Well, it's funny that I'm going after Alfredo because I'm following on the water theme. My favorite moment, possibly at ART, was the day we decided to cut the rain effect.
A monumental day.
There was supposed to be a rain effect in Jagged, and we gave it the college try. And so just ultimately that whole experience, just watching the crew, put the pipes up and change the pipes, and also the folks on the deck standing at the ready with the mops and, coming out and having to stop because of a drip. And it was really something. And it never saw the light of day to an audience. We cut it before the first preview. but we gave it the college try. Boy, we made it rain on stage.
It looked beautiful.
It looked beautiful. The idea was good. And one day...
Ira, it means we all have a water moment. You guys have outlined already. There was a rain effect in Porgy and Bess, Sharika remembers, and there was rain in Night of the Iguana, Taylor.
Yes,
so we've all lived our water dreams or nightmares, however you want to take it.
Water on stage is a stage management rite of passage, I think.
Sharika.
Mine is a little bit more. It's not. I mean, it's a touching moment for me, but it would have been winning the Tony for Porgy and Bess.
Yeah.
As some of us may know, all of the drama that led up to, a little bit of a little letter that a little man named Stephen Sondheim wrote about the show before we were even in previews at ART, before we even got to Broadway, and just banding together to create such a beautiful production and fleshed out these characters, and we told the story. And it was just an amazing moment to not only win the Tony, but to beat Follies. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there.
I'm not above it. I'm not above it on the lunchroom. Let's go there. I'm so glad you took it there, Sharika. Amazing. And so last but certainly not least, Taylor.
I'm going to kick it old school. So Donkey Show is... the Donkey Show was my first professional job. I started as a sophomore in college on what should have been a 1 month long internship, and ended up PSMing the Donkey Show, and then I didn't leave ever again. And
in fact, performed several times.
This is what I'm going to talk about. Is okay. I have been in the Donkey Show as a matter of necessity and. Only in ways that the Donkey Show would allow me to be. I have been the DJ often. I have been disco girl often. I got very, very, very close to being Helen one night, to the point where we were I was in a tube top and we were going through the show. So it definitely is the above and beyond, and certainly above and beyond any of my equity productions. But it's a camaraderie that I've never experienced, and only would I do this for the Donkey Show.
I mean,
so you're still finding glitter everywhere, right?
Truly everywhere. I'm going to give birth to a child, and that child is going to come out full body glitter
in Mylar.
Yes.
You would think that Taylor and I forged our friendship doing shows together, but actually Sarah, myself, and Taylor forged our friendship at the Donkey Show, where Sarah and I bartended for years and Taylor was the PSM. So that was actually where it happened. This is amazing, y'all. We're 8 minutes over time. I am so grateful for y'all hanging on late, being in this conversation, seeing all of you. It's been so long since we've been in the rehearsal room together, and we need to fix that soon.
Yes, please.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. It's great to see you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, ART.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for watching. Deep, deep love. See you next week.
Bye.